All right, we are traveling back in time to the era of Caliph Harun al-Rashid today. In this explainer, we're going to explore a truly fascinating historical case study in brilliant logical deduction. We're uncovering the story of a man whose insanely sharp mind made him, honestly, the ultimate detective of his time. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture Vizier Jafar bin Yahar. He was the highly respected Chief Justice of Baghdad, but he had a really serious problem on his hands. He actually confessed to Caliph Harun al-Rashid that, as time passed, criminals were just getting smarter. They were weaving these tangled webs of lies that made finding the actual truth nearly impossible. He was totally exhausted and desperately needed an impartial, clever deputy to help shoulder this massive burden of justice for the kingdom.
So, to solve this crisis, Jafar recommended a man named Qasim Ali. He was a qazi, which is basically a local judge. Operating out of the small village of Al-Jabali, Qasim Ali had a really stellar reputation. I mean, he was universally respected by young and old alike, known for absolute impartiality, and he literally had a knack for solving complex disputes in a snap. In fact, his verdicts were so widely recognized as fair that they were never ever appealed to a higher court. But, Caliph Harun al-Rashid wasn't just going to hand over the keys to the entire kingdom's justice system based purely on rumors. He decided to go undercover to test the Qazi's legendary skills himself.
Let's quickly trace the Caliph's undercover journey, because it quickly turns into the perfect prime opportunity for a test. Disguised as a common traveler in plain clothes, the Caliph sets off for Al-Jabali. Around noon, he encounters a begging fakir, a poor, wandering ascetic, on the side of the road. Showing his usual generosity, the Caliph hands the man a gold dinar. But the fakir wasn't satisfied with that. He limps after the Caliph, begging for a ride on his horse, claiming his legs are just aching. So the Caliph obliges. Fast forward a bit to 2 p.m. Upon arriving at the village limits, the Caliph asks the man to dismount, and instead of thanking him, no way. The fakir boldly claims the horse as his own, right then and there, accusing the disguised Caliph of trying to steal it. A massive argument breaks out, a huge crowd gathers, and the two of them are quickly directed to none other than Qazi Qasim Ali.
Case files. 3 complex court cases.
Right, so this brings us directly into the courtyard of Qazi Qasim Ali, where our disguised Caliph now has a front row seat to watch the master at work. Case file number 1 involved a classic he said dispute. On one side, a clerk claims a woman is his wife. On the other side, a farmer claims the exact same thing. But here's the massive catch. The woman was mute. She literally couldn't speak for herself to verify either story. Both men present these really convincing, elaborate tales. The Qazi listens patiently to both sides, but then he does something totally unexpected. He doesn't make a ruling at all. Instead, he just instructs them to leave the woman at his home overnight and return the next morning for the verdict.
Next up was case file number 2, which was a fierce argument over a bag of gold coins. A butcher insists the bag contained his hard-earned daily wages, but an oil merchant vehemently disagrees, claiming he had earned those exact coins selling oil. And just like before, Qazi Qasim Ali simply takes the evidence, the bag of coins, and tells the two men to go home and come back the next day. The disguised Caliph is watching all this intently from the sidelines, probably wondering to himself why this supposedly brilliant judge just keeps delaying all of his decisions.
And finally, it's the disguised Caliph's turn for case file number 3. The Caliph explains how he took pity on the fakir, gave him a ride, only to be totally betrayed upon arriving in the village. The fakir seamlessly counters this, spinning a wild lie that he was the one who gave the tired Caliph a ride. Once again, the Qazi listens to both sides without showing even a hint of bias or emotion. His ruling for the day? Leave the horse tied up in his stable, and you guessed it, return tomorrow. So, we are left with a massive cliffhanger here. 3 complex cases, 6 conflicting stories, 0 witnesses. I really want you to think about this for a second. How will the Qazi uncover the truth? How can he possibly know who is lying when it's literally just one person's word against another's? Keep that in the back of your mind as we move to the incredibly clever resolutions.
The Qazi's unique justice system.
Okay, the sun rises on day 2, and this massive crowd has gathered outside. Everyone, especially our disguised Caliph, is waiting to see how Qasim Ali will actually deliver justice. Now, what's really interesting to see here is his analytical framework. He didn't rely on aggressive interrogations, and he didn't try to trip people up with their words. Instead, he relied on behavioral observation and environmental evidence. For each dispute, he secretly designed a specific hidden test: the inkwell test, the water test, and the stable test.
Every single one of these tests was designed to yield a clear, undeniable physical or behavioral result. Let's look at exactly how these played out in practice.
First, the mute woman. The Qazi confidently awards the woman to the clerk and orders the farmer to be punished with lashes. But how did he know? Well, the night before, he asked the woman to refill his inkwell, and she performed this task expertly, cleanly, and with incredible speed. Think about it. A farmer's wife wouldn't regularly handle delicate calligraphy tools, right? But a clerk's wife, she would be intimately familiar with that specific chore from helping her husband all the time. Through one simple observational task, the Qazi completely exposed the farmer's lie.
Next, we have the bag of coins. The Qazi hands the money straight over to the butcher and condemns the oil merchant. His method here was brilliantly simple, almost scientific really. He took the coins and placed them in a bowl of clean water overnight. If the coins truly belonged to the oil merchant, his greasy hands would have inevitably transferred oil residue to the metal, and that oil would float straight to the surface of the water. But the water remained crystal clear. Zero oil meant the butcher was telling the absolute truth.
Finally, we reach the climax, the stolen horse. The Qazi took both men down to his stable, which was packed full of other animals, and asked them to identify the horse. Both the caliph and the cunning fakir easily pointed out the correct animal. But the Qazi immediately gives the horse to the caliph, and this brilliantly illustrates the twist. The test wasn't about who could recognize the horse, it was about who the horse recognized. When the caliph approached, the horse reacted happily, nodding its head. But when the fakir approached, the horse actually pulled its ears back, showing zero affection. The Qazi knew that while humans might lie, animals do not.
The crowd was just amazed, but honestly, no one was more stunned than the disguised traveler. He had just witnessed flawless, logical deduction in real-time action. Remaining behind after the crowd finally dispersed, he dropped his disguise. He revealed himself to the shocked Qazi, telling him, "I am no ordinary traveler. I am Caliph Harun al-Rashid, and today your actions have won my heart." The ultimate undercover test had been passed with absolute flying colors. The aftermath of this incredible display of intellect was immediate. Qasim Ali was brought straight to the Grand Palace in Baghdad. The Caliph proudly appointed him as the Chief Deputy and Justice Officer, meaning he was working directly alongside Vizier Jafar. Jafar's ridiculously heavy burden was finally lifted, and with Qasim Ali's sharp mind at the helm, the kingdom's justice system became virtually foolproof, ensuring genuine fairness for all of its citizens.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that human nature hasn't actually changed all that much. We still face complex disputes and really clever lies today. Which leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder. In an age of clever deceptions, how can we apply Qasim Ali's timeless logic and keen observation to solve our own modern mysteries? The next time you face a seemingly impossible conflict, remember the detective of Al-Jabali. Look past the words, observe the environment, and find the hidden test that reveals the truth. Thank you for joining me in this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and definitely keep learning.